Just yesterday, I was at an event in San Jose where we were talking about motivating the SOC or why the SOC has troubles. What is distracting them from actually being effective as SOC analysts?
The main things that, according to these folks, that they're keeping them away from doing meaningful work is like reporting, monitoring, false positives, shift handovers, all that kind of like repetitive work, and the classic responding to false positives.
A lot of the issues they have there are kind of the repetitive work, the work that doesn't actually move the needle at all. Context switching between 50 different tools in the ecosystem, having requests dumped on them that shouldn't go to your SOC to begin with. Your SOC ends up becoming like a default dumping ground for anything, quote unquote, security related.
Caleb Menendez pretty much asked the sort of the grand question of this whole show. What do you recommend for avoiding that burnout with SOC employees?
There's easy ways to fix it. The problem is a lot of time it's out of analysts' hands, right? It's in the managers of the SOC's responsibility, or it's the CISO's responsibility, or so on. So I think there's three things you can do immediately. One is just reduce the number of false positives, right? Reduce the number of false positives that are going to your SOC. I think the second thing that you can do is make triage fun. Like triage can be a really, really fun activity, provided you're not dealing with 10,000 alerts in a day. And I think the final thing that you can do is empower the frontline analysts to go and automate their own tasks themselves.
Some short-term wins you can do is to reevaluate what your analysts are doing. Look at their runbooks. Are the runbooks actually prescribing them to do tier 1 triage, or are they prescribing them to actually do the analysis of the event? And also looking over those runbooks and saying, what are they doing? Like, is this an actual security event we have a runbook for, or is this something that should be passed on to somebody else? This is where we're looking at using Tines, is to automate a lot of those processes.
Phil Wolf has a question. SOCs are about separating wheat from chaff, distilling a furious spew of news and noise into a handful of actions. How do you assure you escalate the most impactful tickets?
I actually do a kind of a reverse method with our distributed IR model that we've been leveraging here, which is the things that clearly should go to your security team or your CERT team to be looked at, those should land with your CERT team to look at. Everything else should land with the teams that have the necessary skills to address that issue. We've done all the legwork beforehand to figure out, when a problem comes out, we understand all the outputs from our system, where those things should land. And then I train those people how to escalate back to us.
I think like starting with context is always a good place to start, right? Like the reason an alert is going to be considered high priority or requiring escalation is because it ticks a bunch of boxes.
David Peach asks, what do you think is the right set of questions for an organization to ask, and where is the dividing line when considering whether to build and run their own SOC versus outsourcing it to an MDR MSSP?
I think a good MDR is often undervalued. I think if security needs to be a core competency of your business, it needs to be in-house. So if trust and security are an important part of your organization, then I think you should do it yourself. Otherwise, unless you have the resources internally, I think like outsourcing to an MDR is not the worst idea at all.
It depends on the size, scale, and scope of your security team in your company. If you're a tiny team with 4 or 5 guys, you probably can't do that. You're going to look to outsource it. If you are a huge mega company where you have hundreds of thousands of people on your team, okay, it's probably better to do it in-house. It also depends on your environments as well. If you are legacy data center environment where you have your own servers and racks and whatnot, it probably makes more sense to do it in-house versus if you are a cloud company, when you're 100% cloud, where those types of events coming out of the cloud are more known, more standardized on, then it make it easier to pass off to an MSSP or an MDR, or that you could work back and forth.
So this question comes in from Paul. So we are starting to hear more about the concept of cyber fusion centers, that coming together of traditional SOC capability, threat intelligence, and threat hunter cells, and business operations to drive real agility in SecOps. Where do you stand on this as a concept, and when would an organization be ready for such a step?
And I think the problems that we're trying to solve ultimately is like the SOC are fairly helpless. Like without putting too fine a point on it, if an alert comes in, chances are they're not going to be the people who can actually fix it. My understanding is that the concept of a cyber fusion center or a SOC Gen 2 or anything else like that is the concept that you bring all the necessary actionable powers into a singular location, whether that's physical or logical, so that when an alert comes in, you can actually take action. So I think that the term is less important than the actual ability to be able to do something and have all the information that a group needs in order to be able to take action. And in that world, I love it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
It comes down to the people managers caring about their people. That should be your first and foremost, priority as a leader. It shouldn't be to, make your SOC more efficient. It's how can I help my people level up? How can I help them achieve their goals? Because they'll figure out everything else.
I always start with the people. Like, I think a lot of time we jump straight to like, okay, well, I've got this solution, I'm going to roll it out. Like, talk to your SOC analyst today. What's working? What isn't working? Talk to the company. Like, what do they want from security? To understand what the business goals are and work from there. But always start with the people to understand what's actually required.